Welcome to Byte-Sized Tech, where we blend casual conversations with, insightful discussions on the latest in technology and gadgets. Today, we're diving deep into some fascinating intersections where tech meets politics meets big money, and AI just might meet your morning coffee.
That's right. We'll be exploring how, political shifts and investment trends are shaping the future of industries like artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and even election security.
Okay, so first up, we've got news from the world of hedge funds. One's making a splash by reopening specifically to raise funds for AI investments. It's like the gold rush, but for algorithms.
That's a great analogy. And leading the charge is Felipe Elephant, a name you'll want to remember. He's not just betting on AI companies, but on the entire ecosystem that supports them, the infrastructure, the energy, even the specialized talent needed to make it all work.
So instead of just picking a winning horse, he's investing in the whole racetrack. That's a bold strategy, especially with his prediction that humanoid robots could be commonplace in just 15 years. Can you imagine? Robot butlers serving us snacks and folding laundry?
It's a vision straight out of science fiction, but Elephant is betting on it becoming reality. And his confidence is reflected in the surge of Nvidia's stock, a major player in AI hardware. They were recently added to the Dow, a sign of their growing influence in the market. Even Elon Musk is eager to invest more in their AI capabilities.
Speaking of Elon Musk, the upcoming election could have a huge impact on companies like Tesla, especially with all the chatter about Musk possibly taking a role in a new administration.
The idea is that Musk would focus on improving government efficiency, something he's been vocal about. But it's important to remember that Tesla also faces challenges, particularly when it comes to navigating U.S.-China relations. Their Shanghai operations have been a mixed bag with successes and setbacks.
Right, there's that whole balancing act of global trade and political tensions. And let's not forget about the Inflation Reduction Act and those tax credits for electric vehicles. There's talk those might be revised under a new administration, which could shake things up for Tesla and the entire EV market.
Absolutely. Any changes to those tax credits would have a ripple effect throughout the industry. And this ties back to our earlier discussion about AI. All this talk about AI and data centers begs the question, how are we going to power all of this? The energy demands of this technology are only going to grow.
Exactly. It's like plugging in a whole city just to run a few algorithms.
Yeah.
And that's where the debate around nuclear energy heats up, literally. Some say deregulation of the nuclear industry is key to meeting these energy needs.
That's one side of the coin. Proponents argue that nuclear power can provide clean and reliable energy, reducing our reliance on fossil fuels. But there are valid concerns on the other side as well, especially when it comes to safety and the environmental impact of nuclear waste disposal.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers. So we've got AI, electric vehicles, a potential power shift in Washington, and a whole lot of energy to generate. Sounds like a recipe for a pretty interesting future.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
And it really highlights the interconnectedness of these issues. What happens in one area can have a profound impact on the others.
Now, before we jump into election security and the efforts to build trust in the voting process, let's take a quick detour and talk about what's happening with Tesla in China.
Yeah.
You mentioned it earlier, and I think it's a fascinating piece of the puzzle when we talk about global tech and politics.
It definitely is. Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory has been a major success story for the company, allowing them to tap into the world's largest electric vehicle market. But recently, they've faced some hurdles, including increased competition from domestic Chinese EV makers and some supply chain disruptions.
It's a reminder that doing business on a global scale always comes with complexities, especially when you factor in political dynamics and international relations. And speaking of complexities, let's shift gears now and talk about something that's on everyone's mind as we head into another election. Election security. There's a lot of concern out there about, the integrity of our elections and the spread of misinformation. It feels like every election cycle the stakes get higher and anxieties around potential interference or manipulation grow. So what's being done to address these concerns and build trust in the process?
Well, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA for short, has been working hard to reassure voters and strengthen our election systems. They've been focusing on transparency and outreach to build that trust. You might not have heard of CISA before, but they play a crucial role in protecting our critical infrastructure, including our elections.
I have heard their director, Jen Easterly, is a real force to be reckoned with. What's their approach been like?
Easterly has taken a very personal approach to leading CISA, emphasizing the importance of connecting with people directly. She's been making public appearances, speaking at events, and really trying to address those concerns head on. She wants voters to understand that election security is a top priority and that they're doing everything they can to ensure a fair and accurate vote.
That makes sense. If you want people to trust an institution, they need to see a human face and hear a human voice. But what about all the misinformation floating around on social media? It feels like that's only getting worse, especially with all the changes happening on those platforms.
You're right, it's a huge challenge. Platforms like X, TikTok, and YouTube have become breeding grounds for unverified content about the election. And with social media companies constantly adjusting their content moderation policies, it's tough to keep up. And even tougher to stop the spread of false information.
So what's the antidote? How do we combat that and encourage people to rely on credible sources of information? Because let's be honest, sometimes it feels like we're drowning in a sea of information, and it's hard to know what to trust.
Absolutely, and CISA has been urging voters to be cautious about what they see online and to stick to official sources for election information. Think state election websites, county clerk offices, trusted news outlets, those kinds of things. They're also working closely with social media companies to identify and flag potentially misleading content. But it's a constant game of whack-a-mole.
Trust but verify. That's a good motto for the digital age.
And it makes me think of another point. CISA has been emphasizing the need for patience when it comes to counting the votes. It feels like we're always on edge, waiting for those results to come in. Exactly, and they're reminding everyone that we may not know the results on election night. And that's okay. In fact, it's often a good sign because it means election officials are taking the time to count every vote accurately. With the increase in mail-in voting and other secure voting methods, it simply takes more time to process everything. CISA is emphasizing that accuracy is more important than speed.
I think that's a message we all need to hear. We've got to prioritize getting it right over getting it fast. But shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the big picture. The whole debate around regulation and innovation in the tech sector. It seems like there are two very different schools of thought on this.
There are indeed. On one side, you have those who believe that deregulation is the key to unleashing American ingenuity and boosting our industries. They argue that too much government interference stifles growth and drives up costs, making it harder for companies to compete on a global scale. They point to the success of Silicon Valley, which flourished in an environment of relatively light regulation as evidence for their position.
Okay, so less red tape, more innovation. I get that.
Yeah.
But what about the other side? What's their take?
Well, they believe that strategic government intervention can be a powerful tool for fostering innovation and ensuring a level playing field. They argue that the government has a role to play in supporting emerging technologies, protecting consumers, and preventing monopolies from stifling competition. They point to successes like the CHPS Act, which aims to boost domestic semiconductor manufacturing, and the Inflation Reduction Act, which includes significant investments in clean energy technologies as examples of how government investment can drive innovation and economic growth.
So it's kind of a balancing act, right? Finding that sweet spot between fostering innovation and protecting against potential negative consequences, like monopolies or unchecked corporate power.
Precisely. And it's a debate that's playing out across multiple industries, from energy to technology to manufacturing. The question is, what kind of policy environment will best enable American companies to thrive and compete on a global scale, while also addressing concerns about fairness, equity, and the potential downsides of rapid technological advancement?
That's a big question, and one that probably won't be answered anytime soon. But it's clear that the intersection of tech, politics, and investment is creating a dynamic and ever-evolving landscape. It's like watching a high-stakes game unfold in real time.
Absolutely, and it's one that we need to be paying close attention to because it's going to have a profound impact on our lives in the years to come. What we're seeing now is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how technology is reshaping our world.
Well said. And speaking of impact, let's dive into one final thought-provoking topic before we wrap things up. We've talked a lot about how political shifts and policy decisions can shape the tech world. But what about the role of individuals? What can we do to make our voices heard and help steer the future of technology in a direction that benefits everyone? Because sometimes it feels like these big forces are beyond our control.
That's a great question, and I think it's one that we all need to be asking ourselves. In this rapidly evolving tech landscape, it's easy to feel like we're just along for the ride. But the truth is, we have more power than we realize to shape the future of technology and its impact on society.
It can feel overwhelming to think about, how much influence we really have. But think about it. Every time you choose a product, support a company, or cast a vote, you're making a statement about the kind of world you want to live in.
It's true. We often underestimate the power of our individual choices, but they add up. When enough people demand ethical AI development, sustainable energy solutions, or responsible data practices, companies and policymakers take notice. It's like a feedback loop. Our choices influence the market, which influences the policies and the technologies that shape our future.
And that brings us back to where we started. AI, elections, energy, and the constant tug of war between innovation and regulation. These are all huge, complex issues, and they can feel pretty daunting sometimes.
They absolutely are. But that's why it's so important to have these conversations, to break down these topics into bite-sized pieces, and to empower people to engage with them. Because when we understand the stakes and the potential consequences, we can make more informed choices, both as individuals and as a society.
So what's the takeaway here for our listeners? What's the one thing you hope they'll remember from this deep dive?
I think the most important thing is to remember that we're not just passive observers in this technological revolution. We're active participants, and we have the power to shape the future by staying informed, engaging in thoughtful discussions, and making conscious choices. We can help steer technology in a direction that benefits everyone.
Well said. And remember, if you're feeling overwhelmed, don't try to tackle everything at once. Pick one issue that resonates with you, learn more about it, and find a way to get involved. Even small actions can make a difference.
Absolutely. Every voice matters in this conversation. The future of technology is too important to be left to just a few. It's a collective effort, and we all have a role to play.
On that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this whirlwind tour of the tech world, where we explore the intersection of AI, elections, energy, and the ever-evolving landscape of innovation and regulation.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you.
And a huge thanks to our listeners for tuning in. We hope you found this episode insightful, engaging, and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Remember, the future of tech is in our hands.
It's a future worth shaping.
Thanks for tuning in to Byte-Sized Tech. If you enjoyed the episode, like, comment, share, and subscribe for more fun tech discussions.